Marcus's lips were still pressed against hers when the cameras exploded around them. Charlotte Ashford's eyes flew open, blue cold alive, and the first thing she did was grab his collar and pull him closer, not for another breath, but to whisper 4 words that would destroy his life. "My uncle poisoned me." Then she vomited river water onto his chest and passed out again. Marcus looked up at the crowd filming everything at the flashing police lights at his phone, buzzing on the bridge, where his 8-year-old daughter had been waiting alone for 2 hours. The woman he'd just saved was worth $3 billion. The man still drowning in that limousine had 3 daughters who would never see their father again. And Marcus Chen, former nurse turned rideshare driver, had just become the star of a conspiracy he didn't understand. Comment below what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. The needle had been in the water with them. Marcus didn't realize this until later, until after the paramedics had loaded Charlotte Ashford into the ambulance, until after he'd given his statement to police, who looked at him like he was either a hero or an idiot, until after he'd driven to Sophia's school, with wet clothes leaving puddles on his seat, and his hands shaking on the steering wheel from more than just cold. It wasn't until he was standing in the shower at midnight, water running hot enough to burn, that he remembered Charlotte's hand had been clenched around something when he'd pulled her from the sinking limousine. Something small and sharp that had scratched his palm. He looked down at his hand under the shower spray. A thin red line across his palm, already scabbing over. A needle mark. "My uncle poisoned me." Those 4 words whispered against his ear while cameras recorded what looked like a dramatic rescue, while bystanders applauded while Marcus's entire life was being uploaded to the internet, with headlines like, "Hero driver saves billionaire," and "Kiss of life caught on camera." Marcus turned off the water and stood there dripping, staring at the scratch on his palm. If Charlotte Ashford's uncle had poisoned her, if the limousine crash hadn't been an accident, then Marcus had just saved someone's life and made himself a witness to attempted murder. And witnesses to billionaires' attempted murders had a way of disappearing. His phone buzzed from the bathroom counter. Another unknown number. Marcus had stopped answering after the 15th call from reporters, but this text message made him freeze. "Delete the videos. Forget what she said. This is your only warning." Marcus's hands were shaking again as he typed back, "Who is this?" No response. He pulled on sweatpants and checked on Sophia. She was asleep in her bed, small and dark-haired, hugging the stuffed elephant her mother had given her 3 Christmases ago, back when Elena was still alive, back when Marcus had been a nurse at Mount Sinai, instead of a driver trying to make rent. The apartment was quiet except for the usual city sounds, sirens, car horns, someone's TV playing too loud through thin walls. Marcus stood in Sophia's doorway and watched her breathe steady and peaceful, and thought about the choice he'd made in that dark water. 2 people in the limousine. The driver slumped forward, clearly dead. Charlotte Ashford in the back seat, hand pressed to the window, mouth open in a silent scream. Marcus had reached for her without thinking, had pulled her out first, had left Paul Rodriguez, he knew the man's name, now had read it in the news articles to sink into the Hudson, while Marcus performed CPR on a woman who'd whispered about poison and uncles and conspiracies that Marcus wanted no part of. Paul Rodriguez had 3 daughters. The news articles mentioned that too. 3 daughters in Puerto Rico who would grow up without their father because Marcus Chen had made a calculation in approximately 2 seconds and decided that the woman in the back seat was more savable than the man with the broken neck. Except Paul Rodriguez's neck might not have been broken until after the crash, until after Marcus had made his choice. Marcus closed Sophia's door quietly and walked to his kitchen where his phone was still buzzing with notifications. 57 missed calls. 143 text messages. His email inbox had crashed. 1 text stood out sent from a number with a 212 area code. "Mr. Chen, this is Charlotte Ashford. I need to speak with you urgently. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. your address. Come alone. Tell no one. Your daughter's life may depend on it." Marcus read the message 3 times. Your daughter's life may depend on it. He looked at the closed door to Sophia's bedroom. Thought about Emma's mom, who'd already been spreading rumors about Marcus's arrest 3 years ago. Thought about how fast word spread in their neighborhood, how many people had already seen the video. How many people now knew where Marcus Chen lived. He typed back, "How did you get my address?" The response came immediately. "I'm a billionaire. I can get anything." 6 a.m. Don't be late. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat on his couch with a baseball bat across his lap, the same bat Elena had insisted they keep by the door after the third break-in in their old neighborhood, and watched the street below through his window. At 3 a.m., a black SUV pulled up and idled for 10 minutes before driving away. At 4 a.m., Marcus Googled Charlotte Ashford uncle and fell down a rabbit hole of society pages and business articles and gossip columns that painted a picture he didn't like. William Ashford had died 2 years ago of a heart attack at age 58. His younger brother Robert had immediately taken over as interim CEO of Ashford Properties, promising to guide the company until Charlotte was ready to assume control. Charlotte, then 26 and fresh out of business school, had publicly disagreed with several of Robert's decisions. There'd been a shareholder meeting where she'd challenged him, an interview where she'd questioned his financial strategies. 6 months ago, the articles stopped mentioning Charlotte entirely. Marcus found one gossip blog post from 4 months ago. Charlotte Ashford hospitalized after exhaustion. Sources say, billionaire heiress, struggling with grief and pressure. Another from 2 months ago, Ashford family drama. Charlotte taking time off as Uncle Robert consolidates power. Marcus sat back on his couch and stared at his laptop screen. Charlotte hadn't been in a random car accident. She'd been in an assassination attempt that someone had carefully staged to look like bad weather and worse luck. And Marcus had saved her life, which meant whoever wanted her dead now knew his name, his face, and where he lived. At exactly 6 a.m., there was a knock on his door. Marcus checked the peephole and saw Charlotte Ashford standing in his hallway, wearing jeans and a Yankees hoodie that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Behind her was the same linebacker-sized bodyguard from the viral video, the one who'd helped pull them from the water. Marcus opened the door with the chain still on. "How do I know this isn't a setup?" Charlotte looked tired, her face pale without makeup, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. But her eyes were sharp-focused, completely different from the terrified woman he'd pulled from the river. "Because if I wanted you dead, Mr. Chen, you'd already be dead." She glanced at the baseball bat still in his hand. "Can we come in? We don't have much time." Marcus unlatched the chain. Charlotte walked in, and the bodyguard followed, closing the door behind them with a decisive click that made Marcus's heart rate spike. "Coffee," Marcus offered, because his mother had raised him with manners, even if everything else in his life had fallen apart. "No time." Charlotte moved to his window, looked out at the street, then turned back to face him. "Did you get the text?" "Which one? The death threat or your invitation?" "Both, probably. My uncle's people are efficient." She pulled out her phone, typed something, then held it up to show him. "This is you at 2:47 a.m. checking your window. This is you at 3:15 a.m. looking up my family. This is your daughter sleeping. Should I continue?" Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You're watching me." "I'm protecting you, you idiot." Charlotte pocketed her phone. "The moment you pulled me out of that river, you became a liability. My uncle can't have witnesses to what he did." "Your uncle wasn't in the car." "No, but he paid Paul Rodriguez $50,000 to drive us off that bridge." Charlotte's voice cracked slightly on the driver's name. Paul didn't know he was supposed to die too. He thought he was just staging an accident that both of us would survive with injuries. He didn't know Robert had tampered with the airbags, had loosened the railing at that exact spot on the bridge. Marcus sat down heavily on his couch. "You can prove this." "Not yet, but I will." Charlotte began pacing her movements, sharp and agitated. "My father died 2 years ago. Heart attack, they said. Healthy 58-year-old man, no history of cardiac problems, just dropped dead in his office. She stopped pacing and looked at Marcus. The coffee cup was still on his desk. I kept it. Had it tested 6 months ago by a private lab. And digoxin. Tiny amounts over several months. Enough to cause arrhythmia. Enough to kill him and make it look natural. Charlotte's hands were shaking. My uncle has been poisoning me the same way. I figured it out 3 weeks ago when I started feeling the same symptoms my father described before he died. Fatigue, dizziness, irregular heartbeat. So you stopped drinking coffee around him, Marcus said, starting to understand. I stopped eating anything I didn't prepare myself. I fired my entire household staff and hired new people. I started working from home. Charlotte laughed bitterly. But I couldn't avoid him completely. The board meeting yesterday, he insisted we ride together, said it would look united. I thought I was safe in the car with Paul. I didn't know Paul was working for him. The bodyguard spoke for the first time, his voice a deep rumble. We found the syringe in the river this morning. Recovered it during the official investigation. Contents match the digoxin poisoning. Paul was supposed to inject me during the crash, Charlotte continued. Make it look like I'd been impaled by something. But the crash was worse than planned. The car went fully into the water instead of just hitting the railing. Paul died, and I was drowning, and then... She looked at Marcus. Then you jumped in. And you told me your uncle poisoned you. I thought I was dying. I thought those were going to be my last words. Charlotte sat down on the couch next to Marcus, suddenly looking exhausted. But then I woke up in the ambulance and I realized I had a chance. One chance to make this right. Marcus thought about the text message. Your daughter's life may depend on it. What do you want from me? I want you to help me prove it. Help me take down my uncle before he kills us both. Charlotte pulled out an envelope from her hoodie pocket and handed it to him. This is a check for $100,000. Half goes to Paul Rodriguez's family, half goes to you. And before you refuse, she held up a hand. This isn't charity. This is payment for a job. Marcus opened the envelope. The check was real, drawn on a Chase private banking account he didn't know existed. What job? Be my bodyguard, my driver, my witness. Charlotte leaned forward, intensity radiating from her. My uncle thinks you're just some hero driver who got lucky. He doesn't know you were a nurse, doesn't know you'll recognize poisoning symptoms, doesn't know you're smart enough to figure out what's really happening. I'm not smart, Marcus said. I'm just a guy who couldn't save his wife. The words came out before he could stop them. Charlotte's expression softened. I know about Elena, she said quietly. I know about the wrongful arrest, the mistaken identity, the 3 days you spent in lockup while she was dying. She paused. I also know you were an excellent nurse. Top marks in trauma care. Quick decisions under pressure. That's why you saved me instead of Paul, isn't it? Because you knew Paul was already dead. His neck wasn't broken until... Yes, it was, the bodyguard interrupted. Autopsy confirmed it. Impact killed him instantly. You made the right call, Mr. Chen. Marcus looked at his hands, at the scratch on his palm from the needle Charlotte had been clutching. I don't want your money. Then do it for Sophia. Marcus's head snapped up. Don't you dare. Listen to me. Charlotte's voice was urgent now. My uncle knows where you live. He knows about your daughter. He knows you're a witness to his attempted murder. Right now, he thinks you're stupid enough to just cash a reward check and disappear. But if you refuse the money, if you act suspicious, he'll have you killed within 24 hours. So I take the money and disappear. With what? Your savings, your rideshare income. Charlotte shook her head. You have $347 in your checking account. Your rent is due in a week. Sophia needs new shoes and a dentist appointment you've been putting off for 3 months. She must have seen something in Marcus's face because she added softly, I'm not judging. I'm just saying you can't run. You don't have the resources. Marcus hated that she was right. hated that this woman he'd saved 12 hours ago knew more about his life than he wanted anyone to know. What happens to Sophia if I help you? She moves into my building. Secure apartment, 24-hour security, best private school in Manhattan. Charlotte pulled out another envelope. Already arranged. This is her acceptance letter to Ashford Academy. Full scholarship. She starts Monday. Marcus stared at the envelope like it might bite him. You can't just... I can. I did. Charlotte stood up. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to cash that check. You're going to move into my building today. You're going to be photographed accepting my gratitude like a grateful hero. And then privately, you're going to help me gather evidence against my uncle before he poisons us both. And if I say no... Charlotte walked to the window, looked out at the street below. Then I'll have my security team watch you for as long as I can. Maybe a week, maybe 2, before my uncle realizes you're not taking the money and decides you're a threat. Then you'll disappear. Sophia will go into foster care, and I'll die slowly from digoxin poisoning because I don't have anyone else I can trust. She turned back to face him. Paul Rodriguez is dead because he trusted my uncle. My father is dead because he didn't see it coming. I'm not going to let anyone else die. Marcus thought about Elena, who'd believed in second chances. Thought about Sophia, who needed stability and safety, and a father who could actually protect her. Thought about Paul Rodriguez's 3 daughters in Puerto Rico, who deserved to know the truth about why their father had died. 1 week, Marcus heard himself say. I'll give you 1 week to gather your evidence. Then I'm taking Sophia and getting as far away from you and your uncle as possible. Charlotte smiled, and it was sharp and satisfied. Deal. The bodyguard stepped forward and handed Marcus a phone. Burner. Only call or text Charlotte. Your regular phone is compromised. Robert's people have been monitoring it since last night. Marcus took the phone, felt its weight in his palm. What do I tell Sophia? Tell her the truth, Charlotte said. That you saved someone's life, and now that person is helping you build a better life. Kids are smarter than we give them credit for. She'll understand. Marcus looked at Sophia's closed bedroom door, thought about how to explain to his 8-year-old daughter that they were moving into a billionaire's building to help catch a murderer. This is insane, he said. Yes, Charlotte agreed. But it's also your only option. She was right. Marcus hated that she was right. When do we start? Charlotte checked her watch. My uncle expects me at a family brunch in 2 hours. You're coming with me as my new driver. Wear something nice. I don't have anything nice. The bodyguard pulled out a garment bag. Already handled. Of course it was. Marcus stood there in his shabby living room holding a check for $100,000, a burner phone, and a garment bag containing clothes worth more than his car, and thought about the moment in the dark water when he'd made his choice. Save the woman or save the driver. He'd chosen the woman, and now he was living with the consequences. 1 week, he repeated. Charlotte nodded. 1 week to prove my uncle is a murderer. 1 week to save both our lives. She headed for the door, the bodyguard following, but paused with her hand on the knob. Thank you, Marcus, for jumping in, for not walking away. I'm still not sure I made the right choice, Marcus admitted. Charlotte's smile was sad. None of us ever are. We just have to live with what we choose and hope it's enough. Then she was gone, and Marcus was standing alone in his apartment, holding the pieces of a life he didn't recognize anymore. From her bedroom, Sophia called out, Dad! Who were you talking to? Marcus looked at the check, the phone, the garment bag. Just some people who want to say thank you, he called back. Get dressed, baby. We're going on an adventure. It wasn't a lie exactly, just an incomplete truth. And as Marcus Chen had learned over the past 3 years, incomplete truths were sometimes the only way to survive. He just hoped this one wouldn't get them both killed. Sophia stood in the doorway of her bedroom wearing her school uniform, her hair still tangled from sleep, and stared at the garment bag in Marcus's hands. Why do you need fancy clothes for saying thank you? She asked. Marcus hung the bag on the back of the bathroom door and knelt down to her eye level. The lady I saved yesterday, she's very rich. She wants to thank me properly, which means going to a fancy brunch with her family. Do I have to go? No, baby. You're going to stay with Mrs. Patterson downstairs for a few hours. Sophia's face scrunched up. Mrs. Patterson smells like cats and watches soap operas really loud. I know, but it's just for today. Marcus brushed a strand of hair from her face. After that, we're going somewhere new, somewhere better. Better how? Marcus thought about how to explain this without terrifying his 8-year-old daughter. The lady I saved, Charlotte, she has a big building with apartments. She's letting us stay in one for a while. It has a library. Sophia's eyes widened slightly. A real library, with books. With so many books, you couldn't read them all in a year. Can I bring Mr. Elephant? Marcus looked at the stuffed animal on her bed, the one Elena had given her, the one Sophia still slept with every night. Of course you can bring Mr. Elephant. Sophia nodded slowly, processing this information with the careful consideration she applied to everything since her mother died. Is this because of the video? The one Emma's mom showed everyone? Partly. Are we in trouble? Marcus pulled his daughter into a hug, feeling how small she was, how fragile, how much she'd already lost in her short life. No, baby, we're not in trouble. I promise. It was a lie. They were in so much trouble that Marcus could barely breathe when he thought about it. But Sophia didn't need to know that yet. An hour later, Marcus stood in front of his bathroom mirror, wearing a suit that fit him better than anything he'd ever owned. The fabric was soft, expensive, the kind of thing he'd only seen on TV. He looked like a different person. Someone successful. Someone who had their life together. Someone who wasn't drowning in debt and guilt and the weight of choices he couldn't take back. His regular phone buzzed with another unknown number. Marcus ignored it and checked the burner phone instead. One message from Charlotte Carr, arriving in 5 minutes. Remember, you're grateful, humble, and slightly overwhelmed by my generosity. Nothing more. Marcus typed back, I am overwhelmed by your generosity. Charlotte's response was immediate. Good. Keep that energy. My uncle will be watching everything you do. The black SUV that pulled up outside was the same one that had idled outside his building at 3 a.m. Marcus kissed Sophia goodbye. She was already settled on Mrs. Patterson's couch with a bowl of cereal and cartoons playing too loud, and climbed into the back seat. The bodyguard from this morning was driving. He glanced at Marcus in the rearview mirror and said, Name's James. I've been with Charlotte since her father died. Everything I do is to keep her alive. Good to know. If you do anything to put her in danger, I'll kill you myself. Clear? Crystal. James nodded, satisfied, and pulled into traffic. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before he spoke again. The scratch on your palm, from the needle. You feel okay? Marcus looked down at his hand. The thin red line was barely visible now. Fine. Why? Because if Charlotte was holding that syringe, some of the digoxin might have transferred to your skin. Not enough to kill you, but enough to make you sick. James handed back a small bottle. Take one of these twice a day. It'll help flush your system. Marcus looked at the pills. What are they? Activated charcoal. Binds to toxins. James met his eyes in the mirror. Charlotte's been taking them for 3 weeks. It's the only reason she's still alive. Marcus dry swallowed one of the pills and pocketed the bottle. How many people has Robert Ashford killed? That we can prove, none. That we suspect. James was quiet for a moment. Charlotte's father, a board member who opposed Robert's expansion plans, died in a car accident 6 months ago. A forensic accountant Charlotte hired to audit the company books suicide, they said, but the man had no history of depression. He paused. Paul Rodriguez makes 4. Jesus. Robert's careful, patient. He makes everything look natural, accidental, inevitable. James turned onto 5th Avenue. But he's getting desperate now. Charlotte stopped eating his food, stopped drinking his coffee. She moved out of the family estate and into a secure building. She's been quietly gathering evidence, talking to lawyers, preparing to take him down. So he escalated to a car crash. A car crash that should have killed them both and looked like tragic bad luck. James pulled up to a building with a green awning and uniformed doorman. Instead, you jumped in and saved her life, which means Robert now has a witness problem. Marcus looked at the building, all glass and steel and old money. He's going to try to kill me. Probably. That's why you're never alone from now on. Charlotte's paying for 24-hour security on you and Sophia. James put the car in park. The apartment she's giving you has a panic room. Learn where it is. Use it if you have to. Marcus felt that cold sensation in his stomach again, the one he'd been trying to ignore since 6 a.m. I have a daughter. I know. That's why we're moving fast. James got out and opened Marcus's door. Brunch is on the top floor. Penthouse suite. Robert owns the building. His territory, his rules. Charlotte will be there, but she has to play the role of grateful niece who's recovering from a traumatic accident. You're the hero driver who saved her life. Nothing more. What if he asks me questions? Answer them. Be honest about everything except what Charlotte whispered to you in the water. James straightened Marcus's tie. If he asks what she said, you tell him she wasn't making sense. Shock, hypothermia, trauma. You don't remember anything specific. Marcus nodded, his mouth dry. And if he threatens me? He won't. Not here. Not with witnesses. James walked him to the elevator. But when you leave, make sure someone's always watching your back, preferably me. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending to execution. Marcus watched the numbers climb 20, 30, 40 and thought about Paul Rodriguez, who'd taken $50,000 to stage an accident and ended up dead at the bottom of the Hudson. The elevator doors opened onto a penthouse that made Marcus's entire apartment look like a closet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park furniture that probably cost more than his annual income, art on the walls that Marcus vaguely recognized from museum trips with Elena before Sophia was born. Charlotte stood near the windows wearing a cream-colored dress and speaking with an older woman dripping in pearls. When she saw Marcus, her face transformed into a bright public smile that didn't reach her eyes. Marcus, you came. She crossed the room and took both his hands in hers, and Marcus felt her press something small into his palm. Everyone, this is Marcus Chen, the man who saved my life. The room full of people turned to look at him. Expensive suits, designer dresses, faces that Marcus recognized from business magazines and society pages. And in the center of them all, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and a smile that made Marcus's skin crawl. Robert Ashford. He approached with his hand extended, and Marcus had to fight every instinct to not pull away. Mr. Chen, we owe you a debt we can never repay. You're a true hero. Marcus shook his hand. Robert's grip was firm, confident, the handshake of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. I just did what anyone would do. Nonsense. Most people would have driven past. Robert's eyes were sharp, assessing like he was trying to see inside Marcus's skull. Charlotte tells me you were a nurse before becoming a driver. Quite a career change. Life happens, Marcus said carefully. Indeed it does. Robert gestured to the bar. Can I get you a drink? Champagne. We're celebrating Charlotte's miraculous survival. Marcus thought about digoxin in coffee cups, poison in wine glasses, and shook his head. Just water, thanks. A teetotaler. How refreshing. Robert signaled to a server, who brought over a glass of water on a silver tray. Charlotte mentioned you have a daughter. Sophia, isn't it? Every alarm bell in Marcus's head started ringing. Yes. 8 years old, 3rd grade. Robert sipped his own champagne. Must be hard raising a child alone, after what happened to your wife. Marcus's jaw clenched. We manage. I'm sure you do. Robert's smile never wavered. Charlotte's arranged for Sophia to attend Ashford Academy. Wonderful school. Very selective. Your daughter must be quite bright. She is. Good, good. Robert set down his champagne. You know, Mr. Chen, I've been thinking about your situation. A single father working as a driver, struggling to make ends meet. It's admirable truly, but it's also unnecessary. I'm not sure I follow. Robert leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to something almost conspiratorial. Charlotte's giving you $100,000. That's generous certainly, but temporary. What you need is stability, a real career. He paused. I'd like to offer you a position with Ashford Properties, driver for our executive team. Salary, benefits, health insurance for you and Sophia. Security. Marcus felt Charlotte's eyes on him from across the room. She was still talking to the woman in pearls, but her body language had gone tense. That's very generous, Marcus said slowly. It's practical. You saved my niece's life. That deserves more than a one-time payment. Robert's hand landed on Marcus's shoulder, friendly but firm. Think about it. A man with your background, medical training, quick thinking under pressure, you'd be valuable to us. Very valuable. Marcus understood what wasn't being said. Robert wanted him close where he could be watched, controlled, eliminated if necessary. This wasn't a job offer. It was a cage with a salary. I'll think about it, Marcus said. Do that. Robert squeezed his shoulder once before letting go. Now let me introduce you to some people who want to thank you personally for saving our Charlotte. The next hour was a blur of handshakes and small talk with people who looked at Marcus like he was either a curiosity or an inconvenience. Charlotte's aunt, the woman in pearls, asked him invasive questions about the rescue while dabbing at tears that never quite fell. A board member named Heiress grilled him about water safety protocols. A woman who introduced herself as Robert's wife studied him with cold eyes and said nothing at all. Marcus kept his answers short, humble, forgettable. He was just a driver who got lucky. Just a guy who reacted without thinking. Nothing special. But he watched Robert the entire time. Watched how the man moved through the room, always touching someone's arm, always smiling, always in control. Watched how people deferred to him, how they laughed at his jokes, how they nodded along with his stories. This was a man who'd murdered his own brother and was trying to murder his niece, and everyone in this room either didn't know or didn't care. Charlotte caught his eye from across the room and gave him a barely perceptible nod. Time to go. Marcus excused himself from a conversation about bridge safety regulations and made his way toward Charlotte, who was standing by the windows again. Up close, he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly when she adjusted her necklace. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice pitched for the people around them. "It means so much to know that there are still good people in the world." "I'm glad you're okay," Marcus replied, playing his part. Charlotte leaned in as if for a hug and whispered against his ear, "The thing I pressed into your hand, it's a flash drive. Everything I have on Robert. Hide it. Don't look at it here." She pulled back, smiling brightly, and Marcus felt the small device in his pocket, like it was made of lead. "James will take you home," Charlotte said at normal volume. "We'll talk soon about getting you and Sophia settled in your new apartment." Marcus nodded and turned to leave, but Robert was suddenly there, blocking his path with another drink in hand. "Leaving so soon? We haven't even eaten yet." "My daughter," Marcus said. "She's waiting." Of course. Family first." Robert raised his glass. "But before you go, I want to ask you something. Man to man." Marcus's pulse quickened. "Okay. When you pulled Charlotte from that car, did she say anything to you? I know she wasn't making much sense. Shock trauma, all of that. But I'm curious. As her uncle, as someone who cares about her recovery." Marcus remembered Charlotte's whisper. "My uncle poisoned me." He looked Robert in the eye and lied. She wasn't making sense. Something about the water being cold. About her father. Nothing coherent. Robert studied him for a long moment, and Marcus felt like he was being X-rayed. Then the older man smiled. "Well, thank God you were there. Thank God she's safe now." "Yeah," Marcus said. "Thank God." James appeared at his elbow. "Car's ready, Mr. Chen." Marcus said his goodbyes, thanked Robert again for the job offer he had no intention of taking, and followed James to the elevator. It wasn't until the doors closed and they were descending that Marcus allowed himself to breathe. "You did good," James said. "Kept your cool. Didn't give anything away." "He knows," Marcus said. "He knows something's wrong." "Of course he does. But he doesn't know what you know. That's what matters." James pulled out his phone. "We're not going back to your apartment. Charlotte's team is already moving your things. We're going straight to the new place." "What about Sophia?" "Already picked her up from Mrs. Patterson's. She's waiting for you." Marcus felt a flash of panic. "You took my daughter without telling me. We told her you sent us, that there was a change of plans." James showed him a photo on his phone, Sophia sitting in a car, clutching Mr. Elephant, looking scared, but okay. "I have 2 daughters of my own, Mr. Chen. I would never let anything happen to a child." Marcus forced himself to calm down. "Where is she now?" "The apartment, with 2 of Charlotte's security team, both women, both vetted, both armed." James pocketed his phone. "Your daughter is safer right now than she's been in 3 years. The new apartment was on the 20th floor of a building on Central Park West, with doormen and security cameras and the kind of quiet that only existed when you were surrounded by money. James led Marcus through the lobby marble floors. Fresh flowers, a concierge who nodded at them like they belonged, and up to an apartment that was bigger than any place Marcus had ever lived. Sophia was sitting on a leather couch that probably cost more than their old apartment's annual rent. Her small body dwarfed by the furniture, Mr. Elephant clutched to her chest. 2 women in suits stood nearby, looking professional and alert. "Dad!" Sophia jumped up and ran to him, and Marcus caught her lifting her off the ground. "Hey baby, you okay?" "This place is huge." Sophia's voice was muffled against his shoulder. "There's a library, a real one, with a ladder that slides." Marcus set her down and nodded to the 2 security guards. "Thank you." The taller one smiled. "I'm Rachel. This is Anna. We'll be on rotation outside your door. You need anything, just ask." They left, and suddenly it was just Marcus and Sophia in this apartment that felt like a hotel room surrounded by boxes that contained their entire life. "Is this our new home?" Sophia asked. Marcus thought about Robert's smile. Charlotte's whispered warning, the flash drive in his pocket that might get them both killed. "For now." "How long is for now?" "I don't know, baby." Sophia looked up at him with Elena's eyes dark and searching. "Are you scared, Dad?" Marcus knelt down to her level and took her hands. He'd promised himself after Elena died that he would never lie to his daughter about the important things, that he would always tell her the truth, even when it was hard. "Yeah," he said. "I'm scared." "Me too," Sophia whispered. Marcus pulled her into a hug and held on tight, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. "But we're going to be okay. I promise." It was a promise he had no right to make, but he made it anyway. Because sometimes that's what parents did. They promised things they couldn't control, hoped for outcomes they couldn't guarantee, and tried their best to keep their children safe in a world that wanted to break them. His burner phone buzzed. A text from Charlotte. "Did you look at the drive?" Marcus typed back. "Not yet. Do it now. We need to talk." Marcus looked at Sophia, who was exploring the apartment with wide eyes, opening closets and cabinets, discovering wonders like a dishwasher that actually worked, and a refrigerator that was already stocked with food. "Sophia, I need you to stay in the living room for a few minutes, okay? Don't leave this apartment." "Where are you going?" "Just to the bedroom. I need to make a phone call." Sophia nodded and went back to exploring, and Marcus grabbed his laptop from one of the boxes. He locked himself in the master bedroom, a room with a king-sized bed and windows overlooking the park, and plugged in the flash drive. There were hundreds of files, financial records, emails, text messages, photos. Marcus clicked on a folder labeled Evidence and started reading. The first document was an autopsy report for William Ashford. Heart attack ruled natural causes. But someone had highlighted a section at the bottom. Elevated digoxin levels noted consistent with long-term cardiac medication. Family confirms patient had no history of heart disease and was not prescribed digoxin. The next document was a lab report from a private testing facility. The coffee cup from William's desk. Trace amounts of digoxin detected. Then emails. Dozens of them. Robert to various board members discussing Charlotte's instability, her inability to handle the pressure, her need for medical intervention and rest. More emails. Robert to a doctor Marcus didn't recognize, requesting prescriptions for anxiety medication, sleeping pills, antidepressants, all in Charlotte's name. A bank statement showing $50,000 transferred from an Ashford Properties account to Paul Rodriguez 2 days before the crash. A text message from Robert to an unknown number. Problem needs to be resolved. Permanently. Make it look accidental. Marcus felt sick. He was looking at evidence of murder conspiracy, attempted murder. Enough to put Robert away for life if it held up in court. His burner phone rang. Charlotte. Did you see it? She asked without preamble. Yeah. Jesus, Charlotte. This is not enough. Her voice was tight. Every piece of evidence I have can be explained away. The digoxin in my father's coffee, I could have put it there. The bank transfer to Paul could be legitimate company business. The emails about my mental health, Robert's just a concerned uncle. The text message sent from a burner phone we can't definitively prove belongs to him. Marcus scrolled through more files. There has to be something here we can use. There isn't. Not yet. That's why I need your help. Charlotte was quiet for a moment. My uncle is hosting a charity gala next Saturday. Big event, hundreds of people, lots of press. He's going to announce a new development project and position himself as the visionary leader of Ashford Properties. Okay? I want you to be there. As my date. Marcus almost dropped the phone. What? You're the hero driver who saved my life. The media loves a good story. If we show up together, it feeds the narrative that I'm grateful that we've become friends, that everything is perfect and normal. Charlotte's voice hardened. And while everyone is watching us, while Robert is busy playing the benevolent uncle, you and I are going to break into his private office and get the evidence we actually need. That's insane. That's the plan. Charlotte paused. I wouldn't ask if I had another option. But Robert's careful. The only files that can truly connect him to these crimes are in his personal safe. Financial records that haven't been digitized. Communications that don't exist electronically. Proof of payments to people like Paul. Marcus thought about Sophia asleep in the next room. If we get caught, we won't get caught. I know the building, the security system, the timing of guard rotations. And you, Charlotte's voice softened slightly. You're good under pressure. You proved that in the river. I jumped in freezing water to save a drowning woman. That's different from breaking into a murderer's office. Is it? You made a choice in about 2 seconds. You're going to have to make another one now. Charlotte was quiet for a beat. Robert offered you a job today. Driver for Ashford Properties. Did you take it? I said I'd think about it. Don't. If you work for him, you're under his control. He'll assign you routes, monitor your movements, gradually isolate you from everyone except his own people. And then when you're no longer useful, you'll have an accident. Just like Paul. Marcus closed his laptop and walked to the window. Below Central Park, stretched out in the darkness, an expanse of trees and pathways, where people jogged and walked dogs and lived normal lives, uncomplicated by billionaire murder conspiracies. 1 week, he said. You promised me 1 week to prove he's guilty. Then I take Sophia and we disappear. 1 week, Charlotte agreed. The gala is Saturday. That gives us 6 days to prepare. Can you do this? Marcus thought about Elena, who died alone while he sat in a cell. About Paul Rodriguez's 3 daughters. About the choice he'd made in dark water that had led him here. Yeah, he said finally. I can do this. Good. James will bring you everything you need tomorrow. Blueprints, security schedules, the works. Charlotte exhaled, and for the first time since Marcus had met her, she sounded vulnerable. Thank you, Marcus, for not walking away. I'm still not sure I'm doing the right thing. None of us ever are, Charlotte said, echoing what she'd told him that morning. We just have to live with what we choose and hope it's enough. She hung up, and Marcus stood there in the dark room looking out at a city of 8 million people, wondering how many of them were in over their heads like he was. His phone buzzed again. Not the burner, his regular phone. A text from an unknown number. Niece suit today. Your daughter looks cute in her new school uniform. Would be a shame if something happened to either of you. Marcus felt ice flood his veins. He ran to the living room where Sophia was curled up on the couch, already falling asleep with Mr. Elephant tucked under her arm. She was safe, for now. But Robert Ashford was watching them. Had been watching them all day, and Marcus had just agreed to break into the man's office and steal evidence that would put him in prison. He picked up the burner phone and texted Charlotte. He just threatened Sophia. The response was immediate. I know. I got one too. Your hero driver is a liability. Get rid of him or I'll do it for you. He's trying to scare us into backing off. It's working. Good. Let him think it's working. Let him think we're scared. Then we hit him when he's not expecting it. Marcus looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger circling them. He thought about all the ways this could go wrong, all the ways he could fail to protect her, all the ways his choice to jump into that river could cost them everything. But he also thought about Paul Rodriguez, who died thinking he was just staging an accident. About William Ashford, poisoned slowly over months by his own brother. About Charlotte, who'd been fighting alone against a man who wanted her dead. Sometimes you couldn't walk away. Sometimes you had to jump in, even when the water was freezing and the odds were impossible, and you didn't know if you'd make it to the surface. Marcus texted Charlotte back Saturday. I'll be ready. So will I, she responded. Get some sleep. You're going to need it. Marcus locked every door, checked every window, made sure the panic room James had mentioned was actually accessible. Then he carried Sophia to her new bedroom and tucked her in, kissing her forehead the way Elena used to. Dad. Sophia's eyes fluttered open. Are we safe here? Marcus looked at his daughter, at this small person who trusted him to protect her, and told her the truth he wished was a lie. We're safer than we were, he said. And I'm going to do everything I can to keep us that way. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a guarantee. It was just the best he could offer. And as Marcus Chen lay in his own bed that night in an apartment, he didn't deserve holding a flash drive full of evidence against a murderer. He hoped desperately that his best would finally be enough. Because if it wasn't, they were both already dead. The nightmares started that first night in the new apartment. Marcus woke at 3 a.m., gasping the taste of river water in his mouth. Charlotte's blue eyes staring at him from underwater, while Paul Rodriguez's hand reached out from the darkness, grasping, accusing. He checked on Sophia 3 times before dawn, standing in her doorway, just to watch her breathe, to convince himself she was still safe. By Monday morning, when James arrived with a manila folder thick with documents, Marcus had slept maybe 6 hours total across 2 nights. You look like hell, James said, setting the folder on the kitchen counter. Thanks for the honesty. Marcus poured coffee with hands that still had a slight tremor. Sophia's getting ready for her first day at the new school. Rachel's going with her. She'll pose as a teaching assistant, stay close all day. James opened the folder. These are the building schematics for Ashford Tower. Robert's office is on the 47th floor. Corner suite, private elevator access. Separate security system from the rest of the building. Marcus studied the blueprints, his old nurse's brain cataloging information the way it used to catalog patient vitals. What kind of security system? Biometric, fingerprint and retinal scan, changes codes every 24 hours. James pulled out another document. But Charlotte has access. She's still listed as co-executive of the company, even though Robert's been pushing her out. Her biometrics are in the system. So Charlotte gets us in. Then what? Then you have approximately 8 minutes to find the safe crack it, photograph the contents, and get out before the security sweep comes through. James looked at him seriously. The gala runs from 7 to midnight. Security will be focused on the ballroom, but they run checks on empty floors every 15 minutes. You miss your window, you're caught. Where's the safe? Behind a painting. Left wall between the windows. It's a Steiner Vault military grade. James pulled out a small device that looked like a smartphone. This is a digital safecracker. Charlotte acquired it through channels I'm not going to discuss. You attach it to the safe's electronic panel. It runs algorithms until it finds the code. Takes about 6 minutes. Marcus picked up the device. And if it takes longer, then you leave what you came for and get out. Better to fail than get caught. What about Charlotte? If I get caught, she goes down too. Charlotte's prepared to take that risk. James closed the folder. But she'd rather not have to, which is why we're going to spend the next 5 days making sure you know that building better than Robert does. Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing a uniform that actually fit her hair brushed and pulled back with a headband that Charlotte's staff had somehow procured. She looked older, more sophisticated, completely out of place. "Do I look okay?" she asked nervously. Marcus felt his chest tighten. "You look perfect, baby." "Emma's not going to be there, is she?" "No. This is a different school. Better school." Marcus knelt down. "Rachel's going to stay with you today, okay? She's a friend. She's there to help." Sophia looked at Rachel, who smiled warmly. "I hear the library at Ashford Academy is amazing. 3 floors. Want to check it out together during lunch?" Something in Sophia's face relaxed slightly. "Okay." After they left, James spread the building schematics across the dining table and began drilling Marcus on details. Guard rotation schedules, camera blind spots, emergency exits, the gala timeline, where Robert would be at what times, where Charlotte would position herself as distraction. By Tuesday afternoon, Marcus could draw the 47th floor layout from memory. By Wednesday, he'd memorized the security codes for the service elevators and the location of every camera between the ballroom and Robert's office. By Thursday, he was running through the plan in his sleep. On Friday morning, Charlotte showed up at the apartment unannounced. Marcus opened the door to find her standing there with 2 garment bags and a bottle of wine, looking tired but determined. James, who'd been going over last-minute details, immediately stood. "I'll give you 2 some privacy," he said, heading for the door. "Stay," Charlotte said. "You should hear this too." She walked in and set down the garment bags, but kept holding the wine bottle, turning it over in her hands, like she was trying to read something in the label. "I got a phone call this morning," she said quietly. "From my uncle. He wants to meet for lunch today, just the 2 of us. Says he has something important to discuss." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "Are you going?" "I have to. If I refuse, he'll know something's wrong." Charlotte set down the wine bottle. "He's going to try to kill me again. I can feel it. This is his move before the gala, his way of taking care of the problem before Saturday." "Then don't go," Marcus said. "We call the police, show them what we have. We've been over this. What we have isn't enough for an arrest, barely enough for an investigation. The moment we involve police, Robert's lawyers, bury everything in legal motions, and we lose our chance." Charlotte met his eyes. "I have to go to this lunch, but I need you and James there too. Watching. Ready to intervene if things go wrong." James was already pulling out his phone. "Where and when?" "Maria, 1 o'clock. He specifically chose a public restaurant, which makes me more nervous, not less. He's confident." Charlotte turned to Marcus. "I need you to be there as my driver. Wait outside. If I don't come out by 2:30, come in." What about poison? Marcus asked. Digoxin, whatever else he's been using. I won't eat or drink anything I don't see prepared from scratch. I'll order something that has to be cooked in front of me, sushi or a tableside preparation. Charlotte pulled out her burner phone. And I'll keep this on hidden recording everything. If he says anything incriminating, we'll have it. That's not enough, James said. I'll be inside, different table, close enough to intervene. He'll recognize you. Not if I look like a tourist. James was already texting someone. I've got a disguise kit. Give me 30 minutes and my own mother wouldn't know me. Charlotte nodded, then turned to Marcus. The lunch is the preliminary. If I survive it tomorrow night is the main event. Are you ready? Marcus thought about Sophia at her new school, probably sitting in a classroom learning algebra or history, unaware that her father was planning to break into a murderer's office. Thought about Elena, who'd wanted him to take risks to stand up for what was right to be brave, even when it was terrifying. Yeah, he said. I'm ready. Good. Charlotte handed him one of the garment bags. This is your tuxedo for tomorrow. Custom fitted. And this, she gave him the second bag, is my dress. I'm changing here before the gala. Can't go from my apartment, too much surveillance. Marcus took the bags. You think he's watching your place? I know he is. Ever since the crash, he's had people monitoring my building, which is fine. Let him think I'm predictable, that I'm staying close to home recovering from trauma. Charlotte smiled grimly. He has no idea you and I have been planning this. As far as he knows, you're just the grateful driver who took my thank you money and disappeared into your new life. What about tomorrow? How do we explain me being your date? Simple. I'm ready to return to public life, and I want the man who saved me by my side as a symbol of hope and second chances. The media will eat it up. Robert can't object without looking like a monster. Charlotte checked her watch. I need to go. I have a hair appointment before lunch. Maintaining appearances. She headed for the door, then paused. Marcus, if something happens today, if Robert makes his move and I don't make it out. Don't. Marcus interrupted. Don't say that. The flash drive. Everything on it goes to the DA's office, to the New York Times, to every news outlet you can find. Promise me. Nothing's going to happen. Charlotte looked at him with those Arctic blue eyes, and Marcus saw real fear there. Promise me anyway. I promise. She nodded and left, and Marcus stood there holding two garment bags, feeling the weight of a promise he hoped desperately he wouldn't have to keep. At 12:30, Marcus pulled the SUV up outside Maria, a restaurant in Central Park South that Marcus had only seen in magazines before. James was already inside, dressed as a middle-aged tourist with a camera around his neck, and a Queen's accent so thick it sounded like parody. Charlotte arrived at 12:55 in a taxi, wearing a simple black dress and sunglasses, looking every inch the recovering heiress trying to maintain normalcy. She didn't look at Marcus as she walked past the SUV and into the restaurant. Marcus watched through the windshield as Robert arrived 5 minutes later in his own car, stepping out with the confidence of a man who owned half the city. Which, technically, he did. The minutes crawled by. Marcus checked his watch every 30 seconds, scrolled through his phone without reading anything, tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. At 1:45, his burner phone buzzed with a text from James. She's not eating anything. Smart. Robert ordered wine. She declined. Conversation seems normal so far. At 2 o'clock, Robert just took a phone call. Stepped away from the table. Charlotte looks tense. At 2:15, he's back, showing her something on his phone. Can't see what. At 2:20, check cleared. She's getting up to leave. Marcus exhaled for what felt like the first time in an hour. He watched Charlotte emerge from the restaurant, Robert walking beside her, his hand on her elbow in a gesture that looked avuncular but made Marcus's skin crawl. They stood on the sidewalk talking for another minute. Robert's face serious, concerned, while Charlotte nodded and smiled, that public smile she wore like armor. Then Robert kissed her cheek and walked away, and Charlotte crossed to the SUV. She climbed in the back seat, closed the door, and immediately slumped forward with her head in her hands. "Drive," she said, her voice shaking. "Just drive. Anywhere." Marcus pulled into traffic and headed toward Central Park, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. What happened? Charlotte was quiet for a long moment, then sat up and pulled out her phone. He knows. Not everything, but enough. He knows I've been investigating him. Someone on my security team must have talked. How do you know? Because he showed me photos. Charlotte's hands were trembling as she scrolled through her phone. Photos of me meeting with lawyers. Photos of me at the private testing facility where I had my father's coffee cup analyzed. Photos of you and James going over building schematics in your apartment. Marcus felt ice flood his veins. He's been watching us this whole time. Not just watching, he's been 3 steps ahead. Charlotte found what she was looking for and turned her phone so Marcus could see. It was a photo of Sophia outside Ashford Academy. Rachel standing beside her, both of them clearly visible. He sent this to me at the end of lunch. No words, just this photo. Marcus nearly swerved into another lane. That son of a bitch. He's telling me he can get to her. That no matter how much security I provide, he can reach your daughter whenever he wants. Charlotte's voice cracked. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you both, but I've just made you targets. Marcus pulled over on a side street and turned around to face her. What did he say exactly? He said he's worried about me, that I've been through trauma and I'm not thinking clearly, that investigating him is a sign of paranoia, possibly PTSD from the accident. Charlotte laughed bitterly. He suggested I check myself into a private facility for treatment, somewhere quiet where I can rest and recover. A facility he controls. Exactly. And if I refuse, if I make any accusations against him, he'll have me declared mentally incompetent. He's already got doctors lined up who'll testify that I'm delusional, that the trauma of the crash has made me unstable. She closed her eyes. And once I'm committed, he'll poison me slowly until everyone believes I died of a broken heart or complications from stress. Marcus thought fast. What about tomorrow, the gala? He expects me to be there. In fact, he insists on it. Says it'll be good for me to be out in public to show everyone I'm recovering. He wants me visible performing, proving I'm the unstable one while he plays the concerned uncle. And the office, the safe. Charlotte opened her eyes. He said security will be heightened during the gala. Extra guards, new protocols. He's expecting us to make a move. They sat in silence for a moment, the reality settling over them. Robert knew. He'd known for days, maybe weeks. And he'd let them plan and prepare and think they had a chance, all while setting up his own trap. We call it off, Marcus said finally. It's too dangerous. We find another way. There is no other way. Charlotte leaned forward. Don't you see? This is his move. He's trying to scare us into backing down. If we cancel tomorrow, if we don't show up, he wins. I get committed, you and Sophia disappear, and Robert keeps control of everything. Better than getting killed. Is it? Charlotte's eyes blazed. My father died thinking his brother loved him. Paul Rodriguez died thinking he was just doing a job. How many more people die before someone stops him? Marcus thought about Sophia's face when she'd asked if they were safe. Thought about the promise he'd made to keep her protected, to give her a better life than the one they'd been living. If we go through with this and it goes wrong, Sophia becomes an orphan, he said quietly. If we don't go through with this, she grows up knowing her father had a chance to stop a murderer and chose not to. Charlotte reached forward and grabbed his hand. I'm not asking you to die for me, Marcus. I'm asking you to fight with me. There's a difference. James appeared at the passenger window, tapping on the glass. Marcus unlocked the doors and James slid into the front seat, pulling off his tourist disguise. We're burned, James said without preamble. Robert's got surveillance on all of us. I spotted at least 3 different teams while I was in the restaurant. So what do we do? Marcus asked. James looked at Charlotte in the rearview mirror. We go loud. If Robert's expecting us to sneak around, we do the opposite. We walk in through the front door, smile for the cameras, and make it impossible for him to move against us without witnesses. He'll find a way, Charlotte said. He always does. Maybe. But he'll have to do it in front of 500 people at a charity gala. That's harder to cover up than a car accident or a quiet poisoning. James pulled out his phone. I've got friends in private security. Good people who owe me favors. I'm calling them in. Tomorrow night you'll have a dozen extra sets of eyes watching your backs. Charlotte nodded slowly. And the office? The safe. We stick to the plan. You and Marcus slip out during Robert's speech. He'll be on stage for at least 15 minutes, all attention on him. That's your window. James turned to Marcus. Can you do this, knowing he's expecting it? Marcus thought about his daughter sleeping peacefully in an apartment paid for by a woman whose uncle wanted her dead. Thought about the choice he'd made in dark water and all the choices that had followed. Yeah, he said. I can do this. Good. James checked his watch. Gala starts at 7 tomorrow. Charlotte arrives at 6:45, makes her entrance when the press is there. Marcus, you show up at 7, meet her inside. Spend the first hour being visible, being the hero driver and the grateful heiress. Make sure every camera gets your picture. And then we break into Robert's office and pray we find what we need before he finds us. They drove back to Marcus's apartment in silence, each of them lost in their own thoughts about tomorrow night. When they pulled up outside the building, Charlotte got out with Marcus. I'm changing here tomorrow, she said. Safer than my place. Plus, I want to see Sophia before the gala. Meet the girl whose father jumped into a freezing river. Marcus nodded and led her upstairs. Rachel was in the apartment with Sophia, both of them sitting at the dining table working on homework. Sophia looked up when they entered, her eyes widening when she saw Charlotte. You're the lady from the river, Sophia said. I am. Charlotte crossed to the table and held out her hand. I'm Charlotte. You must be Sophia. Sophia shook her hand solemnly. My dad saved your life. He did. He's very brave. He's also very scared. Sophia looked at Marcus. He checks on me 3 times every night. He thinks I'm asleep, but I'm not. Marcus felt his face flush, but Charlotte just smiled. Being brave and being scared aren't opposites, Sophia. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you're terrified and do the right thing anyway. Sophia considered this. Is that what you're doing? Something that scares you? Yes. Is my dad helping you? Charlotte glanced at Marcus, then back at Sophia. Yes. He's helping me stop someone very bad from hurting more people. Like a superhero. Like a regular hero, which is better, I think. Charlotte sat down at the table. Tell me about your new school. Do you like it? For the next hour, Marcus watched Charlotte talk with his daughter about books and teachers and the library with the sliding ladder. She didn't talk down to Sophia, didn't treat her like a child who needed protecting from harsh truths. She talked to her like a person, and Sophia responded by opening up in ways Marcus hadn't seen since Elena died. When it was time for Charlotte to leave, Sophia hugged her. Be safe tomorrow, Sophia whispered. Charlotte pulled back and looked at her seriously. I'm going to try very hard to be safe, and your dad's going to help me. After Charlotte and James left after Rachel had gone to her post outside the door after Sophia was in bed, Marcus sat on his couch and stared at the garment bags hanging on his closet door. Tomorrow night, he would put on a tuxedo and attend a gala with the woman he'd saved from drowning. He would smile for cameras and shake hands with people who had more money than he'd earn in 10 lifetimes. And then he would break into a murderer's office and gamble with his daughter's future. His burner phone buzzed. Charlotte. Thank you for letting me meet Sophia. She's wonderful. Just like her father. Marcus typed back. If tomorrow goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, make sure Sophia knows I tried. Make sure she knows I didn't walk away. There was a long pause before Charlotte responded. She already knows Marcus, That's what makes you a hero, not the jumping in, the not walking away. Marcus set down the phone and walked to Sophia's room one more time. She was asleep, curled up with Mr. Elephant, peaceful and innocent, and trusting that her father would keep her safe. "I'm going to try, baby," Marcus whispered. "I'm going to try so hard." He stood there for a long time, watching her breathe, memorizing her face, in case tomorrow night was the last time he saw her. Then he went to his own room and forced himself to sleep, because he needed to be sharp, needed to be ready, needed to be the hero everyone seemed to think he was, even though he'd never felt less heroic in his life. At 3 a.m., Marcus's regular phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he looked at it. The message was a photo. Sophia sleeping in her bed, taken from inside her room, from the angle of someone standing exactly where Marcus had stood hours earlier. Below the photo, last warning. Walk away tomorrow or lose everything. Marcus stared at the photo, his heart hammering. Someone had been in the apartment, had gotten past security, past Rachel, past every protection Charlotte had put in place, had stood in his daughter's room and photographed her sleeping. He grabbed his baseball bat and ran to Sophia's room, throwing open the door so hard it banged against the wall. Sophia woke up gasping, and Marcus flipped on the lights, scanning every corner, every shadow. Nothing. No one. Rachel came running, gun drawn. "What's wrong?" Marcus showed her the photo. Rachel's face went pale, then hard. "This was taken tonight. I've been outside that door for 6 hours. No one came in." "Someone did." Marcus checked Sophia's window. Locked from the inside. Checked her closet. Empty. Under the bed. Nothing. Someone was in this room. James arrived 10 minutes later, grim-faced and efficient. He swept the entire apartment with equipment Marcus didn't understand, checking for bugs and cameras and entry points. When he finished, he pulled Marcus into the hallway. "There's no sign of forced entry. No cameras. No bugs." James kept his voice low. "But I believe you. Someone was in there. Someone good enough to avoid detection." "How?" "Robert's got resources we don't. Military contractors, intelligence operatives, people who do this professionally." James looked at Sophia's door. This was a message. He can reach her anytime. He's showing you how powerless you are. Marcus felt something snap inside him. Then we hit him harder. Tomorrow night, we don't just photograph what's in his safe. We take everything. Every file, every piece of evidence. We burn his entire operation down. That's not the plan. The plan changed when he put someone in my daughter's bedroom. Marcus met James's eyes. "Tell Charlotte. Tomorrow night, we're not sneaking around anymore. We're going to war." James studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll tell her. Get some sleep. You're going to need it." But Marcus didn't sleep. He spent the rest of the night in Sophia's room, sitting in the chair by her bed with his baseball bat across his lap, watching over his daughter the way he should have watched over Elena 3 years ago. When dawn broke, Marcus made a decision. Whatever happened tonight at the gala, whatever risks he had to take, Robert Ashford would never touch his daughter again. Even if it meant Marcus didn't survive to see tomorrow. By the time Sophia woke up Saturday morning, Marcus had already made 3 pots of coffee and run through the gala plan 17 times in his head. Each iteration ended the same way, with him in handcuffs, or worse, and Sophia alone. "Dad, you look terrible," Sophia said, padding into the kitchen in her pajamas. "Didn't sleep much." Marcus poured her orange juice with hands that had finally stopped shaking. "Big night tonight." "The fancy party." Sophia climbed onto a bar stool. "Rachel said I get to have a sleepover with her. She's ordering pizza and we're watching movies." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Rachel would keep Sophia away from the apartment during the gala in case things went wrong. In case Robert sent people here while Marcus was breaking into his office. "That sounds fun, baby." "Are you nervous?" Marcus looked at his daughter, at Elena's eyes staring back at him, and decided she deserved the truth. Yeah, really nervous. Charlotte said being scared and being brave are the same thing sometimes. Charlotte's smart. Is she your girlfriend now? Sophia asked with the bluntness of an 8-year-old. The question caught Marcus off guard. No, she's just someone I'm helping. But you like her. Marcus thought about Charlotte's Arctic blue eyes, the way she'd talked to Sophia like an equal, how she'd trusted him with her life twice now. Yeah, I like her. Good. Sophia took a sip of her juice. Mom would want you to like someone again. Marcus had to turn away, pretending to look for something in the refrigerator, so Sophia wouldn't see his face. Elena had said that exact thing in the hospital during one of their last conversations. Don't be alone forever, Marcus. Promise me you'll let someone in. He hadn't believed he'd ever want to. 3 years of grief and guilt and just surviving had made the idea of caring about someone new feel impossible. But somewhere between pulling Charlotte from the river and watching her sit at his dining table, talking to his daughter, something had shifted, which made tonight even more terrifying. Because now he had 2 people to protect instead of 1. At noon, James arrived with a woman Marcus hadn't met before. She was in her 50s, elegant and severe, carrying a leather briefcase. This is Margaret, James said. She's a lawyer. Criminal defense, specializing in corporate fraud. Margaret set her briefcase on the counter and looked at Marcus with sharp eyes. Mr. Chen, I need you to understand something. What you're planning tonight is illegal. Breaking and entering corporate espionage, theft of proprietary documents. If you're caught, you will be arrested. I know. What you might not know is that Robert Ashford has enough legal power to make your arrest very permanent. He can tie you up in litigation for years, drain whatever resources you have, make sure you never see your daughter except through supervised visitation. Margaret opened her briefcase. So before you do this, I need you to sign these documents. Marcus looked at the papers she spread out. What are they? Custody transfer effective immediately upon your arrest or incapacitation. Sophia goes to Charlotte, not into the system. Financial trust for Sophia's care and education funded by Charlotte, accessible only to approved guardians. Margaret pulled out more documents. Living will. Medical power of attorney. Instructions for Sophia's care in the event of your death. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. You think I'm going to die tonight. I think you're taking an enormous risk against a man who's killed at least 3 people. Margaret's voice softened slightly. I also think you're trying to do the right thing, so I'm making sure that if the worst happens, your daughter is protected. Marcus looked at James. Charlotte asked you to do this. She insisted. Said she won't let you walk into this without a safety net for Sophia. James paused. Sign the papers, Marcus, just in case. It took Marcus 20 minutes to read through everything, his hands shaking as he turned pages that detailed exactly what would happen to Sophia if he didn't come home tonight. Margaret explained each document patiently, her voice clinical and kind at the same time. When Marcus finally signed the last page, Margaret gathered everything up and handed him a business card. My personal cell number. You call me the second anything goes wrong, not the police, not a lawyer you find in the phone book. Me. Why are you doing this? Margaret smiled thinly. Because 15 years ago, Robert Ashford destroyed my brother's construction company through predatory lending and legal manipulation. My brother killed himself 6 months later. I've been waiting a long time for someone to have the courage to take that man down. After she left, Marcus stood in his kitchen holding her business card and trying not to think about what it meant that Charlotte had prepared for his death. That she'd set up trusts and custody arrangements and backup plans because she understood better than anyone what they were walking into tonight. At 4 o'clock, Charlotte arrived with a rolling suitcase and 2 members of her security team Marcus hadn't met before. She looked exhausted, her face pale without makeup, dark circles under her eyes. Rough night, Marcus asked. Robert called me at 2 a.m. Asked if I was feeling okay, if I was sure I wanted to come tonight, if maybe I should stay home and rest. Charlotte dropped the suitcase. He knows we're not backing down. He's trying to give me one last chance to walk away. Maybe you should take it. Charlotte looked at him sharply. What? I can do this alone. Break into his office, get what we need. You don't have to be there. Marcus gestured toward Sophia's closed bedroom door. You have your whole life ahead of you. I'm just a driver with a kid. If things go wrong, you lose everything. And you don't? Charlotte crossed her arms. You think Sophia losing her father is somehow less important than me losing my fortune? It's not the same. It's exactly the same. Charlotte's voice was fierce. You jumped into a freezing river for me. You put yourself between me and a killer. You've spent a week planning to commit a felony to help someone you barely know. Don't you dare tell me your life matters less than mine. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I saw the custody papers, the trust fund, the arrangements. Good. That means if something happens to you, Sophia is protected. Charlotte's expression softened. But I'm planning on both of us walking out of that building tonight. Together. Charlotte. I need you there, Marcus. Not just as help. Not just as backup. She took a step closer. I need you there because you're the only person in my entire life who's ever looked at me and seen something worth saving beyond my bank account. So no, you don't get to be noble and do this alone. We're in this together. Before Marcus could respond, one of Charlotte's security team cleared his throat. Ms. Ashford, we need to start your preparation. Hair and makeup will take at least 2 hours. Charlotte nodded and grabbed her suitcase, heading toward Marcus's bedroom. She paused in the doorway. Put on your tuxedo at 6. We leave at 6:30. And Marcus? Try not to overthink this. We have a plan. We stick to it. Marcus spent the next 2 hours with James going over the plan one more time. The gala schedule, the security rotations, the blind spots in camera coverage, the 8-minute window they'd have to crack the safe and photograph everything inside. One more thing, James said, pulling out a small device that looked like a pen. This is a panic button. You press the top, it sends an alert to every member of Charlotte's security team and to Margaret's phone. We come running, no questions asked. Marcus clipped it to his tuxedo pocket. What if Robert's people get there first? Then you use this. James handed him a small canister. Pepper spray, military grade. Point at face, press button, run like hell. I'm not armed. You're not a killer, Marcus. If you go in there with a gun, you might have to use it. Then you're not just breaking and entering, you're armed robbery. That's 10 years minimum. James met his eyes. Charlotte doesn't want you to become a criminal trying to catch one. At 5:30, Marcus knocked on his own bedroom door. Charlotte, I need to change. Come in. I'm decent. Marcus opened the door and stopped breathing. Charlotte stood by the window in a midnight blue dress that looked like it cost more than his car. Her hair was pulled back, makeup subtle but perfect, and she looked like every magazine cover Marcus had ever seen of her, except real, human, vulnerable. You clean up nice, Marcus said, his voice coming out rougher than intended. So do you. Charlotte turned to face him fully. That tuxedo makes you look like you belong in my world. I don't belong in your world. Maybe not, but you're in it anyway. Charlotte picked up her clutch purse. Ready? Marcus thought about Sophia safe with Rachel at an undisclosed location. Thought about the custody papers and the trust fund and all the ways tonight could end badly. Thought about Elena, who'd believed he could be better than his worst moments. Yeah, I'm ready. They took separate cars to the gala. James drove Charlotte in a limousine, making her entrance visible and public, while Marcus followed in the SUV with 2 other security members. The gala was being held at Ashford Tower, Robert's crown jewel, a glass and steel monument to wealth and power. Press lined the entrance, cameras flashing as Charlotte stepped out of the limousine. She paused, smiled, waved every inch the composed heiress. Then she looked back and held out her hand, and Marcus understood. This was part of the performance. The grateful billionaire and her hero driver arriving together. Marcus climbed out of the SUV and took her hand, and the camera flashes intensified. Reporters shouted questions. "Charlotte, how does it feel to be back?" "Mr. Chen, are you and Ms. Ashford dating?" "Is it true Robert Ashford offered you a job?" Charlotte leaned close and whispered, "Smile. Wave. Don't answer anything." They walked into the building together, still holding hands, and Marcus felt like he was walking into a lion's den, wearing a suit made of meat. The lobby was packed with people in evening wear, waiters circulating with champagne, a string quartet playing something classical and expensive. Robert stood at the center of it all, surrounded by admirers, but his eyes found Charlotte immediately. He excused himself and crossed the lobby, arms open wide. "Charlotte, you look beautiful." He embraced her, and Marcus saw Charlotte go rigid for half a second before relaxing into the hug. "And Mr. Chen, good to see you again. I'm glad you could join us." "Wouldn't miss it," Marcus said, his voice neutral. Robert's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Charlotte tells me you're not interested in my job offer. That's disappointing. I was hoping to keep you in the family, so to speak." "I appreciate the offer, but I'm committed to helping Charlotte right now. She's been generous enough to give me and my daughter a fresh start." "Yes, the apartment, the school. Very generous indeed." Robert's hand landed on Marcus's shoulder, the grip just slightly too firm. "Although I worry my niece is being too generous, taking on responsibilities that might be burdensome for someone in her current state." Charlotte's voice was ice. "I'm perfectly fine, Uncle Robert." "Of course you are, dear. I just want to make sure you're not overextending yourself." Robert turned to Marcus. "You're a nurse, aren't you? Or you were. Surely you understand the importance of recognizing when someone needs rest. Professional care." Marcus understood the threat perfectly. Robert was still pushing the narrative that Charlotte was unstable, that she needed to be committed, and he was warning Marcus that insisting otherwise would make him complicit in her delusions. "Charlotte seems perfectly healthy to me," Marcus said carefully. "Strong, actually. Stronger than most people I've met." Robert's smile turned sharp. "Well, we'll see. The night is young." He released Marcus's shoulder. "Enjoy the gala. I'm giving a speech at 8:30. I hope you'll both be there to hear it." He walked away, and Charlotte's hand tightened on Marcus's arm. That was him telling us he knows. He's expecting us to make our move during his speech. So what do? We do exactly what he expects, but better. Charlotte guided them toward the ballroom. James has people positioned throughout the building. The moment Robert starts his speech, they'll create small distractions. Nothing major, just enough to pull security's attention away from the upper floors for those extra few minutes we need. What kind of distractions? Fire alarm on the 30th floor. Drunk guest causing a scene in the parking garage. Medical emergency in the kitchen. Charlotte smiled grimly. Robert's not the only one who can plan 3 steps ahead. They spent the next 2 hours playing their roles. Charlotte circulated through the room greeting board members and donors, accepting condolences about her father and congratulations on her survival. Marcus stayed close, the devoted hero driver, humble and grateful and forgettable. Except he wasn't forgettable. People kept approaching him, wanting to shake his hand, to hear about the rescue, to tell him how inspiring he was. A woman whose husband had died saving someone during 9/11 gripped his hands with tears in her eyes and told him he was a good man. A teenager who'd lost his father in a car accident asked Marcus if he was scared when he jumped. "Terrified," Marcus admitted. "But you did it anyway." "Yeah, I did it anyway." At 8:25, the lights dimmed and a voice announced that Robert Ashford would be speaking in 5 minutes. Charlotte found Marcus at the edge of the ballroom. "This is it," she whispered. "We slip out during the applause when he takes the stage. Service elevator to the 47th floor. 8 minutes to get in, crack the safe, photograph everything, get out. And if something goes wrong, then we improvise. Charlotte's hand found his. Thank you, Marcus, for not walking away. Thank you for not letting me. The applause started as Robert took the stage, and in the thunder of 500 people clapping, Marcus and Charlotte slipped out a side door. James was waiting in the hallway with 2 key cards. Go. I'll be watching the security feeds. You've got exactly 8 minutes before the next patrol sweep. James handed Charlotte a small camera. Make every shot count. They took the service elevator, and Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs as they ascended. 40 floors. 45. 47. The doors opened onto a quiet hallway, plush carpet artwork on the walls, the kind of corporate luxury that screamed money. Charlotte's hand was steady as she used her key card on Robert's office door, but Marcus could see the pulse jumping in her neck. The office was enormous windows overlooking the city desk, the size of Marcus's entire kitchen. And there on the left wall between the windows, a painting of ships at sea. Charlotte crossed to it and swung the painting aside. Behind it was a Steiner vault, military grade, just like James had described. Charlotte pulled out the safe-cracking device and attached it to the electronic panel. The device beeped once and began running algorithms. 6 minutes, James had said. Maybe less if they were lucky. Marcus stood by the door watching the hallway through the small window, his burner phone counting down the time. 7 minutes. 6.5. Come on, Charlotte whispered to the device. Come on. At 5 minutes, the safe beeped and the lock disengaged. Charlotte pulled open the heavy door and gasped. Inside was exactly what they'd hoped for. Files, ledgers, USB drives, bank statements. Evidence of years of embezzlement, fraud, murder conspiracies. Everything they needed to put Robert away for life. Charlotte started photographing her hands, moving fast, flipping through documents, and snapping pictures with practiced efficiency. Marcus kept watch, his eyes on the hallway, the countdown timer on his phone, the panic button in his pocket. 4 minutes. 3.5. Almost done, Charlotte whispered. Just a few more. The elevator dinged. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Someone was coming. Not in 3 minutes when the security sweep was scheduled. Now. Charlotte, we have to go. 30 more seconds. Now. Marcus grabbed her arm, but it was too late. The office door swung open, and Robert Ashford stood there with 3 security guards behind him. Well? Robert said, his voice almost cheerful. This is disappointing. I'd hoped you'd be smarter than this, Charlotte. Charlotte stood frozen, the camera still in her hand, the safe open behind her, with all of Robert's secrets visible. Marcus stepped between them, his hand moving toward the panic button, but Robert held up a phone. On the screen was a video feed. Sophia and Rachel, in what looked like a hotel room playing cards, completely unaware they were being watched. I wouldn't, Robert said. Press that button, call for help, try anything heroic, and my people go to that room. Your daughter won't be harmed, Mr. Chen. She'll just disappear into the foster system while you're being arrested for breaking and entering, and Charlotte will be in a psychiatric facility before morning. Marcus felt his hand freeze on the panic button. You bastard. I'm a realist. You two are idealists. That's why you're here, and I'm about to win. Robert gestured to the guards. Take the camera, take everything they touched, and call the police. I want them both arrested for corporate espionage. One of the guards moved forward, but Charlotte stepped back toward the safe. If you arrest us, everything in here becomes evidence. Every crime you've committed, every person you've killed, it all comes out in discovery. Robert laughed. You think I'd keep the real evidence here? In a safe you knew about, Charlotte? I trained you better than that. Marcus's mind raced. It had been a trap. All of it. Robert had let them come here, let them think they were winning just so he could catch them in the act and discredit them completely. The real files, Robert continued, are somewhere you'll never find them. These, he gestured to the safe. These are copies, carefully edited copies that make it look like you've been embezzling from the company Charlotte, doctoring records to frame me. You poor traumatized girl. The accident broke you, and you've been spiraling ever since." Charlotte's face went pale. "No one will believe that." "Everyone will believe it. I've spent months laying the groundwork. The doctors who'll testify to your instability. The board members who'll say you've been acting erratically. The evidence trail that points to you, not me." Robert's smile was triumphant. "You played right into my hands." The guards moved closer, and Marcus knew they were out of time, out of options. He could press the panic button, but Sophia would disappear. He could fight, but there were 3 of them, and they were probably armed. He could surrender, but that meant Charlotte in an institution, and Robert walking free. Marcus looked at Charlotte, at the fear and fury in her eyes, and made a choice. He grabbed the camera from her hands and threw it out the window. The glass shattered with a sound like thunder, and the camera fell 47 floors to the street below, where 500 gala attendees were streaming out of the building to see what the commotion was about. "What did you do?" Robert's face went purple with rage. "The camera's cloud-enabled." Marcus lied, his voice steady, even though his heart was trying to beat out of his chest. Every photo Charlotte took uploaded automatically. To her lawyers, to the DA's office, to 3 different news organizations. It was a complete bluff. The camera didn't have cloud capability. James had specifically chosen one that didn't to avoid leaving a digital trail. But Robert didn't know that. "You're lying." "Am I?" Marcus pulled out his burner phone and held it up. "See that red light? That means I've been recording this entire conversation. Every word you just said about fake evidence and framing Charlotte, about making her disappear." He hit a button. "And now it's uploading too." Robert's eyes went to the phone, then to the shattered window, then to the crowd gathering on the street below. Marcus saw the calculation happening, saw Robert realize that whether or not Marcus was lying, the moment had been lost. Too many witnesses now. Too much attention. "Get out," Robert said, his voice deadly quiet. "Both of you. Now." "We're not done." Charlotte started. "Yes, you are." Robert stepped aside, gesturing to the door. "Go, run. It won't matter. I'll still destroy you. It'll just take longer." Marcus grabbed Charlotte's hand and pulled her toward the door, but she resisted, her eyes on the open safe. "Charlotte, we have to go." "He's right. Without the evidence." "We have something better." Marcus held up his phone, the recording still running. "We have his confession, his admission that he set you up. That's not fake evidence. That's his own words." Charlotte stared at him, then at Robert, then back at Marcus. Understanding dawned on her face, and she let Marcus pull her out of the office. They ran for the stairs. The elevator would be too easy to stop, and Marcus could hear Robert shouting behind them. "Lock down the building! Don't let them leave!" They took the stairs 3 at a time, 47 floors down, Marcus's legs burning, Charlotte's heels abandoned somewhere around the 30th floor. They burst into the lobby where gala attendees were clustering around the shattered window glass, pointing up, taking photos. James appeared at Marcus's elbow. "What the hell happened?" "Change of plans. We need to get to Sophia. Now." They pushed through the crowd toward the exit, but police were already pulling up outside, lights flashing. Robert must have called them before confronting Marcus and Charlotte in the office. "Back entrance," James said, changing direction. "This way." They ran through the kitchen, past shocked catering staff, out a service entrance into an alley where James had a car waiting. They piled in, and James hit the gas tires, squealing. "Where's Sophia?" Marcus demanded. "Hotel Chelsea, 10th floor. Rachel has her in room 1047. James weaved through traffic. "What the hell happened up there? I saw the window break on the security feed." Charlotte was breathing hard, her dress torn, her hair falling out of its careful style. "Robert was waiting for us. He knew we were coming. The safe was full of fake evidence designed to frame me. But Marcus got his confession on tape." Charlotte continued, holding up Marcus's phone like it was made of gold. Everything. Robert admitting to planting false evidence to trying to have me committed all of it. James glanced in the rearview mirror. Is it admissible? Single-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows they're being recorded, it's legal. Marcus checked behind them. No police following. Not yet. But we need to get it to Margaret before Robert's lawyers can bury it. James made a hard left, throwing them all sideways. Already texted her. She's meeting us at the hotel. They reached the Chelsea in 12 minutes that felt like 12 hours. Marcus was out of the car before it fully stopped running for the entrance, taking the elevator while James and Charlotte took the stairs just in case. Room 1047. Marcus pounded on the door. Rachel! It's Marcus! The door opened, and Marcus nearly collapsed with relief. Sophia was there, safe playing cards with Rachel, like nothing in the world was wrong. Dad? Sophia jumped up. You're early. We haven't even had dessert yet. Marcus grabbed her and held on tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. We need to go, baby. Right now. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. We just need to leave. Rachel was already packing up their things, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd done extractions before. Where are we going? Somewhere Robert can't find us, Marcus said. Margaret arrived 10 minutes later with 2 other lawyers and a laptop. Marcus handed over his phone and watched her play the recording. Her face impassive as Robert's voice filled the hotel room. This is good, she said finally. Very good, but it's not everything. Without the physical evidence. I have photos, Charlotte interrupted. She pulled out her bra and extracted a micro SD card. The camera James gave me was a decoy. I took real photos with this. She held up the tiny card. Every document in that safe. James stared at her. When did you? While Marcus was watching the door. I wasn't sure the big camera would survive, so I hedged my bets. Charlotte handed the card to Margaret. Even if the documents are fake, they prove Robert went to enormous lengths to frame me. Combined with Marcus's recording, it shows consciousness of guilt. Margaret inserted the SD card into her laptop and started scrolling through photos. Her expression shifted from neutral to shocked to something like savage satisfaction. These aren't all fake, she said slowly. Some of these are real. Look, this bank statement shows transfers to offshore accounts that match the timeline of Paul Rodriguez's death. This email is from Robert's personal account, not one he could claim was fabricated. She looked up at Charlotte. How did you know which ones were real? I didn't. I photographed everything and hoped. Charlotte sat down heavily. Will it be enough? To arrest him, maybe. To convict him. Margaret smiled. Oh, yes. Combined with the recording, the timing of events, Charlotte's documented history of being poisoned, this is enough to get warrants, to freeze his assets, to start a real investigation. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. So we did it. We actually did it. You did it, Margaret corrected. But now comes the hard part. Robert Ashford has an army of lawyers and unlimited resources. The moment we file charges, he'll come after all of you with everything he has. You need to be prepared for a long fight. I'm prepared, Charlotte said quietly. I've been preparing for 2 years. Margaret nodded and started making phone calls, pacing the hotel room, while she talked to DAs and judges and people Marcus didn't know. Within an hour, police were on their way to arrest Robert Ashford. Within 2 hours, news was breaking on every channel about the billionaire facing fraud and murder charges. Marcus sat on the hotel bed with Sophia sleeping against his shoulder and watched his phone light up with notifications. Messages from reporters, from old friends, from people he hadn't talked to in years. Everyone wanted to know what happened. Everyone wanted the story. But Marcus was done with stories. He was done with heroics and dramatic rescues and risking everything. He just wanted to go somewhere quiet with his daughter and figure out how to build a normal life. Charlotte sat down next to him, still in her torn gala dress, still looking like royalty, even with ruined makeup and bare feet. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the recording, for throwing the camera, for improvising when the plan fell apart. You're the one who hid the real evidence in your bra. We made a good team." Marcus looked at her, at this woman who'd trusted him with her life, who'd set up trust funds for his daughter, who'd fought a murderer with nothing but determination and a hidden SD card. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now Robert goes to jail. The company gets audited. I spend the next year cleaning up his mess and trying to rebuild everything my father created." Charlotte paused. "And you and Sophia find somewhere safe to live while the legal battle plays out." "You make it sound like I'm leaving." "Aren't you?" "You said 1 week. The week is over." Marcus thought about his shabby apartment in Queens, his rideshare app, his life of just surviving. Then he thought about Sophia's face when she'd talked about the library with the sliding ladder, about Charlotte meeting his daughter as an equal, about the way it felt to care about someone other than himself for the first time in 3 years. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I don't know what happens now." Charlotte smiled, tired but genuine. "Then let's figure it out together. After we get some sleep and probably testify at about 50 depositions." Sophia stirred against Marcus's shoulder and mumbled, "Dad, are we safe now?" Marcus looked at Charlotte, at Margaret still making calls in the corner, at James, standing guard by the door, at Rachel, who'd kept his daughter safe while he'd been breaking into offices, at all these people who'd helped him fight a fight he never should have won. "Yeah, baby," he said, kissing Sophia's forehead. "We're safe now." It wasn't entirely true. Robert had lawyers, resources, connections. The fight was far from over, but for the first time since Elena died, Marcus felt like maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. And sometimes a chance was all you needed. The police arrested Robert Ashford at 11:47 p.m. on the steps of his own building in front of 300 gala guests and 40 news cameras. Marcus watched it happen on Margaret's laptop while Sophia slept in the hotel bed, Charlotte sitting beside him with her hand in his. Robert didn't resist. He stood there in his tuxedo, hands behind his back, looking more annoyed than afraid, while officers read him his rights. The footage would be on every news channel by morning, the billionaire in handcuffs, the empire crumbling. "He doesn't look worried," Marcus said. "He's not yet." Charlotte's voice was tired. "He thinks his lawyers will have him out by morning, that this is just a temporary inconvenience." "Will they?" Margaret looked up from her phone. "Not if I can help it. I've got 3 judges reviewing the evidence right now. If even one of them agrees to deny bail based on flight risk and danger to witnesses, Robert stays in custody until trial. And if they don't agree, then he walks and we spend the next 6 months looking over our shoulders." Margaret's expression was grim. "But I don't think that's going to happen. The recording alone is damning. Add in the financial evidence, the pattern of deaths around him, Charlotte's medical records showing digoxin poisoning, it's enough to hold him." James appeared in the doorway with coffee and food that no one had asked for, but everyone needed. "News is calling it the scandal of the decade. Billionaire accused of murdering brother attempting to kill heiress. You two are front page everywhere." Marcus thought about Sophia waking up to see her father's face on every TV screen, reporters camping outside their building, the endless questions and speculation. "We need to disappear, at least for a while." "Already arranged." James handed him a coffee. "I've got a house upstate. Off the grid, no digital footprint. You and Sophia can stay there as long as you need." "What about Charlotte?" "I'm staying here." Charlotte stood up and walked to the window looking out at the city below. "I have to face this. The board, the shareholders, the press. If I run, it looks like I have something to hide. You just took down a murderer. No one thinks you're hiding anything. You'd be surprised what people think when there's money involved." Charlotte turned back to face him. Robert's lawyers are already spinning this as a power grab. The unstable niece trying to take control of the family fortune by framing her devoted uncle. I need to be visible, stable, in control. Otherwise, his narrative wins. Marcus wanted to argue, to tell her she'd done enough, risked enough. But he saw the steel in her eyes and knew she'd already made up her mind. How long? He asked. Until the trial. 3 months, maybe 6. Charlotte crossed back to him. You and Sophia will be safe upstate. James's team will rotate security. And when this is over, when Robert's in prison and the company is stable again. She stopped, seeming to search for words. Then what? Charlotte sat down next to him, close enough that Marcus could smell her perfume mixed with fear and exhaustion. Then we figure out what this is, what we are. Because somewhere between you pulling me out of that river and tonight, I started caring about you. A lot. And I need to know if that's just trauma bonding or something real. Marcus looked at this woman who'd trusted him with her life, who'd hidden evidence in her bra and fought a murderer with nothing but determination. Who'd set up trust funds for his daughter and talked to Sophia like an equal. Who made him feel things he hadn't felt since Elena died. I care about you too, he said. But I have a daughter who's already lost one parent. I can't put her through losing another one if this doesn't work out. I know. That's why we wait. Let the dust settle, let the trial happen, let everything calm down. Then we see if what we feel right now still makes sense when we're not running for our lives. It was the most rational thing either of them had said all week, which somehow made it hurt more. Marcus nodded and squeezed her hand, and they sat there in silence, while Margaret made phone calls, and James coordinated security, and Sophia slept through the night that changed all their lives. By dawn, Judge Patricia Morrison had denied Robert bail, citing substantial evidence of witness tampering and flight risk. By noon, the DA had filed formal charges, 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, 17 counts of fraud and embezzlement. The Ashford Properties Board called an emergency meeting and suspended Robert indefinitely, installing Charlotte as interim CEO. Marcus watched it all unfold on TV while packing up Sophia's things. They were leaving for James's upstate house that afternoon, disappearing while the media circus played out. Rachel would come with them, along with 2 other security members Marcus barely knew. I don't want to go, Sophia said, clutching Mr. Elephant. I just started at the new school. I finally made a friend. I know, baby, but it's not safe here right now. Because of the bad man, Robert? Marcus knelt down to her eye level. Yeah. Because of him. And because reporters are going to want to talk to us, and I'd rather you not have to deal with that. Sophia was quiet for a moment, then asked, Is Charlotte coming with us? No, she has to stay here. Why? Because she has responsibilities. A company to run, people counting on her. But you're her responsibility too, Sophia said, with the blunt logic of an 8-year-old. She told me you're important to her, so why isn't she coming? Marcus didn't have a good answer for that, or maybe he did, but it was too complicated to explain to a child. That sometimes caring about someone meant letting them fight their own battles. That love. If that's what this was sometimes looked like, distance and patience, and trusting the other person to survive without you. She'll come visit, Marcus said finally. When things calm down. You promise? I promise I'll do everything I can to make that happen. Charlotte arrived an hour later to say goodbye. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back, makeup minimal. She looked younger, without all the armor, more like the terrified woman Marcus had pulled from the river than the polished heiress who'd walked into the gala. Ready? She asked. As ready as we're going to be. Marcus gestured to their bags. Everything we own fits in 4 suitcases. That's either depressing or liberating. I can't decide which. It's a fresh start. Charlotte knelt down to Sophia's level. Hey, kiddo. You taking care of your dad for me? Sophia nodded seriously. He needs a lot of taking care of. I know he does. Charlotte pulled out a small wrapped package. I got you something, for the road." Sophia tore open the paper to reveal a leather-bound journal with her name embossed on the cover. "What's it for?" "For writing down your story, everything you see and feel and think while you're away. And when you come back, you can show me and tell me all about your adventure." "Will you write down your story too?" Charlotte smiled. "Yeah, I'll write down mine. And maybe someday we can compare notes and see how different our versions are." Sophia hugged her, and Charlotte held on tight, her eyes meeting Marcus's over his daughter's head. So much passed between them, in that look, gratitude and fear, and something deeper that neither of them was ready to name yet. When Sophia pulled away, Charlotte stood and faced Marcus. "Keep her safe." "I will. You keep yourself safe. I've got James and an entire security team, plus Margaret, who's scarier than any bodyguard." Charlotte tried to smile, but it wobbled. "Marcus, don't." Marcus stopped her. "Don't say anything we'll regret later. Just focus on taking down Robert and saving your company. We'll still be here when you're done." Charlotte nodded and kissed his cheek, her lips soft and warm, and gone too quickly. Then she was walking away. James at her side, and Marcus was loading Sophia into a car that would take them somewhere safe and quiet, and far from the woman he was falling for. The house upstate was more cabin than mansion, tucked into woods with a lake nearby, and no neighbors for miles. Rachel got Sophia settled, while Marcus walked the perimeter with the security team, learning exits and safe rooms, and procedures that made his stomach hurt. "You really think Robert's people will come here?" Marcus asked. "Robert's in jail, but he's got money and connections," the head of security said. "His name was Thomas, ex-military, and he moved like someone who'd seen real combat. He could put a hit out from his cell if he wanted to. We're not taking chances." That first night in the cabin, Marcus lay in bed listening to unfamiliar sounds whine through trees instead of sirens, crickets instead of car horns. His phone buzzed with a text from Charlotte. "Made it through my first board meeting without crying or throwing anything. Small victories." Marcus typed back, "Proud of you. We're settled in. Sophia loves the lake." "Good. Tell her I miss her. Miss you too." Marcus stared at those 3 words, "miss you too," and felt his chest tighten. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a rideshare driver trying to make rent and keep his daughter from hating him. Now he was hiding in a cabin, helping prosecute a billionaire, and texting with a woman who'd somehow become essential to his life in the span of 10 days. "Miss you too," he typed back. "Stay safe." The days fell into a rhythm. Sophia did online schoolwork in the mornings, while Marcus helped Rachel prepare meals and walked the property with Thomas. Afternoons were for the lake, teaching Sophia to skip stones and identify birds, and just be a kid without the weight of trauma and fear. Evenings they read together, played cards, talked about Elena, something they hadn't done enough of in the 3 years since she died. "Do you think Mom would like Charlotte?" Sophia asked one night. Marcus thought about Elena, who'd been fierce and funny and believed in second chances. "Yeah, baby. I think she would have liked her a lot." "Good, because I like her too." "I know you do. And you love her." It wasn't a question. Marcus looked at his daughter, at Elena's eyes staring back at him, and decided she deserved the truth. "I don't know yet. Maybe. It's complicated." "Why is it complicated?" "Because Charlotte's rich and I'm not. Because she lives in a world I don't understand. Because loving someone means trusting them not to leave. And I don't know if I can do that again after losing your mom." Sophia was quiet for a long moment, then said, "Mom didn't leave. She died. That's different." "I know. And Charlotte jumped into scary stuff with you. She trusted you with her life. That means something, right?" Marcus pulled his daughter close and kissed the top of her head. "When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just finally noticed." Margaret called every few days with updates. Robert's lawyers were fighting every charge, filing motions, trying to get evidence suppressed. The trial date was set for January, 4 months away. Charlotte was holding press conferences, reassuring shareholders, slowly rebuilding the company's reputation. "She's doing well," Margaret said during one call. "Better than well, actually. She's got a steel spine I didn't know existed." "I knew it existed," Marcus said. "I saw it that first morning when she showed up at my apartment. She asks about you. Every time I talk to her. Wants to know if you're safe, if Sophia's happy, if you need anything. Tell her we're fine. Tell her to focus on herself." I tell her that. She doesn't listen." Margaret paused. "Marcus, when this is over, when Robert's convicted and locked away, what are you going to do?" "I don't know. Haven't thought that far ahead." "You should. Because Charlotte's going to want you in her life, and you need to decide if you can handle what that means. The scrutiny, the pressure, the constant attention. I'm not interested in her money. I know that. Everyone knows that. But money isn't the only complication. Charlotte's going to be running a billion-dollar company. She's going to have obligations, responsibilities, a schedule that doesn't leave much room for normal relationships." Margaret's voice softened. "I'm not saying don't pursue this. I'm saying go in with your eyes open. Know what you're signing up for." After she hung up, Marcus stood on the cabin's porch, looking out at the lake, and thought about what he wanted. A year ago, the answer would have been simple stability, peace, enough money to keep Sophia fed and clothed. But now, after everything, the answer was more complicated. He wanted Charlotte. Wanted the way she made him feel like he was more than his worst mistakes. Wanted her fierce determination and unexpected humor, and the way she talked to Sophia like an equal. Wanted to see if what they'd built in crisis could survive in calm. But he also wanted Sophia to have a normal childhood. Wanted to protect her from the spotlight and scrutiny that would come with dating a billionaire. Wanted to prove that he could be a good father without someone else's money propping him up. The wants were at war with each other, and Marcus didn't know which side would win. In September, 2 months after the arrest, Charlotte came to visit. She arrived without warning, driving herself in a rental car, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and looking exhausted but happy. "Surprise?" she said when Marcus opened the door. "You can't just show up security. James knows I'm here. He's circling the property in a very paranoid way as we speak." Charlotte looked past him into the cabin. "Is Sophia around?" "At the lake with Rachel. They'll be back in an hour." "Good." Charlotte stepped inside and closed the door. "That gives us time to talk." They sat on the couch, the same couch where Marcus and Sophia watched movies every night, and suddenly Marcus felt awkward. Like he didn't know how to talk to this woman he'd broken into a building with, who he'd held hands with during a gala, who he texted every night before bed. "Trial's in 4 months, Charlotte said. DA thinks we have a solid case. Robert's lawyers are running out of motions to file." "That's good?" "Yeah." Margaret's optimistic. Charlotte twisted her hands together. "The company's stabilizing. Board approved my 5-year plan. Stock prices are recovering." "That's good too." "Marcus, I didn't drive 3 hours to give you a business report." Charlotte turned to face him fully. "I came because I miss you. Because I've spent 2 months thinking about you and Sophia and wondering if what I felt that night was real or just adrenaline. And it's real. So real, it scares me." Charlotte reached for his hand. "I know this is complicated. I know you have doubts about whether we can make this work, but I need you to know that I'm willing to try. Whatever it takes." Marcus looked at their joined hands, at the way her fingers fit between his, like they were made for it. "I have a daughter who's already lost one parent. If we do this and it doesn't work out, I would never hurt Sophia. Never. That's not who I am. I know that. But relationships end. People leave. I can't put her through that again." Charlotte was quiet for a moment, then said, "My father used to tell me that nothing good comes from playing it safe, that the biggest regrets in life are the chances you don't take." She squeezed his hand. "I'm not asking you to marry me, Marcus. I'm asking for a chance, to see if this thing between us can survive outside of crisis and danger, to see if we actually like each other when no one's trying to kill us. Marcus thought about Elena, who'd believed in taking risks, about the moment in the river when he'd decided to jump instead of walking away, about Sophia telling him that love meant trusting someone not to leave. "Okay," he said. "One chance. But we take it slow. We figure out how to blend our lives without disrupting Sophia's, and if at any point it's not working, we're honest about it." "Deal." Charlotte smiled, and it was the first genuine smile Marcus had seen on her face in months. "Can I kiss you now? Or is that moving too fast?" Marcus answered by pulling her close and kissing her the way he'd wanted to since that night on the hotel bed when she'd held his hand and said she missed him. It was different from the CPR kiss on the riverbank. This was soft and slow and full of possibility instead of desperation. When they pulled apart, Charlotte was crying. "Sorry, I'm so tired of fighting, of being strong, of pretending I'm not terrified all the time." Marcus pulled her against his chest and held her while she shook this woman who'd fought a murderer with hidden SD cards and determination. "You don't have to be strong right now. You can just be." They stayed like that until they heard Sophia and Rachel coming up the path, and Charlotte pulled herself together, wiping her eyes and straightening her shirt. By the time Sophia burst through the door, Charlotte was smiling again, all traces of vulnerability hidden. "Charlotte," Sophia ran to her and hugged her hard. "You came. Dad said you might not be able to visit for a long time." "I made time." Charlotte looked at Marcus over Sophia's head. "Some things are too important to put off." They spent the rest of the day together, the three of them, plus Rachel swimming in the lake, and grilling burgers and playing cards on the porch. It felt normal in a way Marcus hadn't experienced in years. Not the desperate survival of the past 3 years, but actual happiness, actual peace. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Marcus and Charlotte sat on the porch, watching stars that were actually visible without city light pollution. "I should get back," Charlotte said. "Early meeting tomorrow." "Stay the night. Drive back in the morning." Charlotte looked at him. "Marcus." "In the guest room. I'm not suggesting anything else. Just stay. Let yourself rest for one night without checking your phone every 5 minutes or worrying about what the board thinks." Charlotte hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. One night." She called James to confirm security was in place, then followed Marcus inside. He showed her the guest room, gave her one of his t-shirts to sleep in, since she hadn't brought clothes, and tried not to think about how domestic this felt. At 2 a.m., Marcus woke to find Charlotte standing in his doorway. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Nightmares. About the crash, the river drowning." Charlotte hugged herself. "They've gotten worse since Robert was arrested. Like my brain finally feels safe enough to process the trauma." "You want to talk about it?" "Not really. Can I just—" She gestured to his bed. "Can I just sleep here? Not for anything else. Just because being alone right now feels impossible." Marcus pulled back the covers and Charlotte climbed in, keeping to her side of the bed. They lay there in the dark, not touching, just breathing together. And eventually, Marcus heard her breathing even out into sleep. He stayed awake longer, thinking about this woman in his bed, about the trial coming in 4 months, about what it would mean to actually build a life with someone like Charlotte. It should have felt impossible, the ex-nurse turned driver and the billionaire heiress. But somehow, lying there in the dark, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The next 3 months passed in a strange limbo. Charlotte visited every other weekend, staying in the guest room, but spending most nights in Marcus's bed just sleeping, finding comfort in not being alone. Sophia got used to having Charlotte around, started calling her Charlie, and including her in drawings of their family. The trial started in January, on a morning so cold that the lake outside the cabin had frozen solid. Marcus and Charlotte drove to the city together, Sophia staying behind with Rachel, and walked into the courthouse holding hands. The trial lasted 6 weeks, Marcus testified about the recording, about breaking into Robert's office, about the threats to Sophia. Charlotte testified about the digoxin poisoning, about years of manipulation, about finding her father's coffee cup and having it tested. Margaret presented evidence that Robert had embezzled $40 million over 5 years, had paid Paul Rodriguez to stage the crash, had systematically isolated and drugged Charlotte to make her appear unstable. Robert's lawyers fought back with their own narrative: the unstable heiress, the ex-convict looking for a payout, the fabricated evidence. They tried to discredit Marcus's recording. Charlotte's medical records, every piece of evidence Margaret had built. But in the end, the jury believed Charlotte, believed Marcus, believed the pattern of death and fraud that surrounded Robert Ashford like a shadow. Guilty on all counts. Marcus was sitting in the gallery when the verdict was read, Charlotte's hand in his, and he watched Robert's face go blank with shock. The man who'd seemed so invincible, so untouchable, was led away in handcuffs to serve 30 years minimum. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them with cameras and questions. Charlotte gave a brief statement about justice and healing and rebuilding her father's legacy. Marcus said nothing, just kept his arm around Charlotte while she spoke, letting her have her moment. Later in Margaret's office, they celebrated with cheap champagne and take-out Chinese food. "What now?" Margaret asked. "You've won. Robert's in prison. Company's stable. What's next?" Charlotte looked at Marcus. "That depends. Marcus Chen, I'd like to officially offer you a position as director of the Ashford Foundation for Second Chances. Salary, benefits, autonomy to run the foundation however you see fit. Plus an apartment in my building, not mine, your own, so Sophia has stability. What do you say?" Marcus thought about his old life driving strangers around in a beaten-up car, struggling to make rent. Thought about the past 6 months hiding in a cabin, helping take down a murderer, falling for a woman who believed in second chances. "I say yes," he said, "but on one condition. I want Paul Rodriguez's daughters to be the foundation's first beneficiaries. Full scholarships, housing support, whatever they need. And I want to meet them to tell them their father mattered, that his death meant something." Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. Deal. They flew to Puerto Rico 2 weeks later, Marcus and Charlotte and Sophia, to meet Paul Rodriguez's family. His daughters were 14, 11, and 8. The youngest was Sophia's age. His widow Maria was a small woman with sad eyes, who'd been working 3 jobs since Paul died. Marcus stood in their living room and tried to find words. "I'm the man who pulled Charlotte from the river the night your husband died. I want you to know I tried. I saw him in the front seat, and I tried to get to him, but he was already gone," Maria interrupted. "The police told me. Broken neck from the impact. You couldn't have saved him. I made a choice. I chose to save her first. And every day since I've wondered if I made the right one." Maria looked at Charlotte, then at Marcus. "My husband took money from a bad man. He made a mistake. But he thought he was just staging an accident, something everyone would walk away from. He didn't know he was supposed to die too." She took Marcus's hands. "You saved Charlotte's life. She caught the man who killed my husband. That's justice. That's what matters." Charlotte stepped forward. "The Ashford Foundation is going to support your daughter's education. All 3 of them through college and beyond. And we're going to make sure everyone knows Paul's name. That he was a good man who made one mistake and paid for it with his life, because of a murderer. Not because of you." She pointed to Marcus. "Because of Robert." They stayed in Puerto Rico for 3 days, getting to know Paul's daughters, hearing stories about the man Marcus had never got to save. When they left, Sophia was pen pals with the youngest daughter, and Marcus felt like maybe finally he'd made peace with the choice he'd made in that dark water. Back in New York, Marcus and Sophia moved into their new apartment. It was on the same floor as Charlotte's down the hall, close enough to be together, but separate enough to maintain boundaries. Sophia enrolled in Ashford Academy and actually made friends this time. Marcus started working at the foundation, helping ex-convicts and former addicts and people who needed second chances. And Charlotte ran her company, brilliant and fierce, rebuilding everything Robert had tried to destroy. They dated the way normal people dated dinners and movies and walks in Central Park. Sophia was there for most of it because Marcus wouldn't have it any other way. Charlotte never complained, never pushed for more than Marcus was ready to give. 6 months after the trial, Marcus woke up on a Saturday morning to find Charlotte in his kitchen making pancakes with Sophia. They were laughing about something flour on both their faces, and Marcus stood in the doorway watching them and felt something click into place. This was his family now. Not the one he'd lost, but the one he'd found. Charlotte and Sophia, and the life they were building together. "You're staring," Charlotte said, not looking up from the pancakes. "Just appreciating the view." Sophia rolled her eyes. "Gross. Dad's being romantic again." "So gross." Charlotte agreed, but she was smiling. That afternoon, Marcus took Charlotte back to the bridge where he'd pulled her from the river. They stood at the railing looking down at the water below, and Marcus thought about that night, the cold, the fear, the choice he'd made. "I jumped because I couldn't let someone die alone," Marcus said. "Because my wife died alone, and I wasn't there. Because I needed to prove I could save someone." "And now?" Charlotte asked. "Now I know you can't save everyone, but you can save someone. And sometimes that someone saves you back." Charlotte turned to face him. "Marcus Chen, I love you. I know we agreed to take things slow, but I can't not say it anymore. I love you, and I love Sophia, and I want to build a life with you. Whatever that looks like." Marcus kissed her there on the bridge, where he'd become a hero, where he'd made a choice that changed everything. "I love you too. Have for months. Was just waiting for the right time to say it." "Is this the right time?" "Yeah, this is exactly the right time." They got married a year later in a small ceremony at the cabin upstate. Sophia was the flower girl. James walked Charlotte down the aisle. Margaret officiated, cracking jokes about how she'd prepared for Marcus's death, not his wedding. Maria Rodriguez and her daughters came. So did the other families the foundation had helped. So did the nurses Marcus used to work with at Mount Sinai before everything fell apart. It wasn't fancy or elaborate. Just two people who'd survived impossible things, promising to survive the rest of their lives together. At the reception, Sophia gave a toast. "My dad jumped into a freezing river to save Charlotte. And Charlotte jumped into Dad's messy life to save him back. I think that's pretty cool. Also, I'm getting a library in our new house, so I'm very happy about this marriage." Everyone laughed, and Marcus pulled his daughter close while Charlotte held his other hand. "You good," Charlotte whispered. Marcus looked around at all these people who'd helped them survive, who'd believed in second chances, who'd fought for justice, and won. Looked at his daughter, happy and healthy, and no longer asking if they were safe. Looked at his wife, who'd trusted him with everything. "Yeah," he said. "I'm good." And for the first time since Elena died, Marcus Chen meant it. He was more than good. He was happy. He was home. He was exactly where he was supposed to be. The kiss that had saved Charlotte's life hadn't destroyed his after all. It had just given him a new one, a better one. One worth the freezing water and the fear and all the impossible choices in between. Sometimes you had to drown before you could learn to breathe again. Marcus had drowned. And Charlotte had been there when he came up for air. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.